Hey guys, how's it going? Srey here. So today I want to talk to you about Rexxar. So Rexxar is an interesting hero for a couple of reasons. The first is that he's the only warrior that has ranged auto attacks besides Zarya. The second reason is that it's not really just Rexxar, it's also Misha. So you're really controlling two heroes. Although Misha is kind of like a mini hero, not like a fully fledged hero like Rexxar, it's still extremely important to control Misha to really master playing Rexxar. A lot of his damage and utility comes from, in fact, Misha. Rexxar doesn't really offer too much, except that, of course, Rexxar dying is a lot worse than Misha dying, because Misha can just revive off of Rexxar after a small amount of time, and she doesn't really count for a full kill. She only counts for a quarter of a kill and counts as a quarter of the experience that you'd get from killing a normal hero. So the way you really want to play Rexxar is you want to have the enemy team commit to killing Misha, or at least pump in a lot of damage into Misha, and then either you or your team can just kind of overwhelm them when they find it too difficult to kill Misha. So Misha just acts as kind of like a ward and something that's really, really annoying and something that you can't get rid of unless you either use cooldowns on her and focus to kill her down, to burst her down, or you go and you flank and you find Rexxar in the back and you kill him so you don't have to deal with Misha. Because if Rexxar dies, Misha automatically dies as well. Rexxar is a fairly strong hero at the moment. He got recent buffs and in his rework, and he's actually very, very strong, especially if you kind of you mastered playing Rexxar. So he's a hero that is easy to play but difficult to master. And a lot of that comes from just the mechanics of actually controlling Rexxar and Misha individually. Learning that is very pivotal to playing Rexxar effectively because his basic abilities are quite simple, but it's the mechanics that you really need to learn. He's good on pretty much every map. There isn't really a map that he's bad at, but maybe perhaps Black Hearts would be a weak map for him, but there's still a strong solo lane at the bottom. And speaking of solo lanes, that's what Rexxar is really, really good at. He is really good at perhaps the best hero in the game at soloing lanes. So in case you don't know, a lot of maps like Brax's Holdout, Dragonshire, Tomb of the Spider Queen have lanes where you basically have one person designated to stay in that lane for a significant portion of the game. Perhaps the first portion of the game, so just like the early game, you have someone down there like Rexxar who would just solo the lane and keep it pushed up, and just you want to have one person there. You don't want to commit too many resources. And Rexxar is one of the best heroes, if not the best hero, at doing that. His big weakness is that he doesn't contribute as much in team fights as some of the other heroes. So say you have like a Thrall or something and Thrall solo lanes, and he's not gonna he might be a little bit weaker than Rexxar in the solo lane, but he's gonna come out, he's gonna have Sunder, he can insta kill people, he can Earthquake, and he can cause a lot of havoc on the enemy team. Rexxar doesn't have that kind of crisp engage. He doesn't have that burst damage. He doesn't have that. He doesn't really have that much damage overall. So when you're playing Rexxar, it's a different playstyle, and you're kind of slowly whittling them down. And you have to really use the utility of having Misha. You don't have the damage as some of the other solo lanes would. So let's talk about Rexxar's abilities quickly. Start off talking about Rexxar's D, which is Misha focus. So Misha is her basically her own hero, and you can control Misha like any other hero by activating D and just clicking it. So Misha passively has 15% increased movement speed, so she's a little bit quicker than normal heroes, and she does count as a hero for any kind of hero effect. So like Giant Killer works on Misha, for example. So you have a few controls here. You can just control Misha. You can see there's a kind of like a pink icon above her, and that means she's going to be staying at a location they designate. You can see that the indicator is quite large for where you can target Misha to go, and the leash range is actually a little bit larger than that. So if I'm outside the range, she'll stay there for a second, and then after you're out of the range for a second, she'll run back to you. So if I run out and then I run back in, she shouldn't leash. I can also put her in a bush and just have her watch, which is something you should do a lot if you're not actually using Misha. You can also control Misha while you're mounted without dismounting yourself. So this is also something that's important to do. And I believe you can also control Misha while you're capping a point. So if you're channeling something on like Towers of Doom, you can have Misha watch for you. But you can't have Misha like charge, for example, because that'll dismount and count invincibility. You can only have Misha target. You can also have Misha. So if I don't control Misha here, so if I just go up and attack something, the first thing I attack is something that Misha will attack as well. And if I switch targets, she'll switch targets as well. So you can see that little indicator is where Misha is going to go if she sees a new target. However, if I just do Misha focus on a target, she's going to stay on that target and she's not going to leave that target no matter what. And if the target runs away, she's going to follow the target unless she either dies, gets leashed out. Didn't mean to activate that. So if I activate Misha focus on myself, she will actually retreat to me and gain 30% increased movement speed. So this is obviously really useful for if she's far away. You're going to be using this all the time. So you constantly are basically having her attack different targets, or position differently, or run back to you. So anytime you want Misha to run back to you, don't just click the terrain behind you. Actually click Rexxar himself and she'll run back quicker because it's actually a different command. So that's pretty much all you need to know about playing Misha, in the sense of kind of mechanics. Just being able to use Misha properly during fights, you'll find a little bit difficult if it's your first time or if you're new to Rexxar. It's going to take quite a few games to kind of warm up to it and being able to switch targets and be able to concentrate on Rexxar and Misha at the same time. But over time, it'll kind of become a natural skill to you. So let's go over his actual abilities. They're quite simple and they're pretty standard. A lot of Rexxar's kit is playing around Misha, but let's go over them really quickly. Spirit Swoop basically deals damage to enemies in a line on a 7-second cooldown, and it slows them by 30% for 2 seconds. So it just looks like this, and that's the entire ability. Rexxar's W is Misha Charge, and it actually is based around Misha. So you can see the indicator is around Misha here, and if I click in a target direction, she will charge in that target direction, damaging and stunning enemies. All enemies hit for 1.25 seconds, and it's on a 10-second cooldown. So you can see here, I can be all the way over here, just have her stun, and she will stun all enemies in a line. So it's 1.25 seconds. That's the same as Mirrodin Stormbolt, except it's also an AoE ability, and it goes through targets. So it's actually a quite strong stun. It's one of the stronger stuns in the game. Rexxar's E is Men Pet, and he heals Misha for about 40% of her max health over 5 seconds and has a 10-second cooldown. So you're going to have 50% uptime on this, which means that for the first 5 seconds, after 5 seconds, the ability will be on cooldown for 5 seconds. So it has pretty good uptime, and this allows you to keep Misha very healthy, and it makes the enemy team kind of not want to focus Misha because she'll just get healed up really easily. So obviously Rexxar can't heal himself, but you can heal Misha. So if the enemy team is trading on Misha, that's usually a really bad trade for them because for 55 mana, you can heal her for a huge amount of her max health. So again, his abilities are quite basic. You're basically just worrying about Q, which basically you slow enemies if they're chasing you or if you're chasing them. And the really important ability you have to worry about is Misha Charge. That's the most important part of Rexxar's abilities, and the most important part of his kit overall is using charge correctly. So knowing when to charge, making sure you don't miss the charge, and making sure you're charging the right enemies, because it's your only peel and it's also your only engage. So you have to make sure that while you also want Misha in the right spot, maybe targeting an enemy, if an enemy gets on you, you're not going to be able to stun them off of you, because the charge is based off Misha. So if Misha's over here and the enemy is on me, Misha's not going to be in range to stun them so I can peel and run away. So learning positioning is quite important, and I'm sure if you're new to playing Rexxar, you will be in a position where you really need the stun, but Misha wasn't close enough or nearby. So that's pretty much the entire part of his kit. It's, again, very easy to learn and play for the first time. I wouldn't even recommend that you really use too many commands if it's your first time playing. You probably just want to use normal commands. So you basically just attack stuff, and then if Misha's not coming, you just D yourself and she'll chase you. That's pretty much all you need to do for the kind of the first few times you're playing. But then as you're playing more and more, try and take more micro control of Misha herself. Okay, let's talk about talents. So level 1, we have Easy Prey, which increases Misha's damage to minions and mercenaries by 150% and Misha gains Misha gains 50 armor against minions and mercenaries, basically reducing the damage that she takes by 50%. Bird of Prey increases Spirit Swoop's damage by 150% to minions, and Flare fires a flare at an area, revealing it for 20 seconds, and it has a cooldown of 30 seconds. So the standard talent you want to take here is Bird of Prey. And Bird of Prey is extremely important on Rexxar for a couple of reasons. One, it gives you fantastic wave clear. I mean, that's the reason you take it in the first place. But the second reason is you're usually in lane. You're usually solo laning. And if you want to solo lane on Rexxar, having wave clear is very, very important. So I'm going to take it here to show you how effective it is. Let's toggle minions on. So watch when these minions walk up, and I Q the wave, and they're basically instantly all dead. So I'm obviously level 20 here. I'm level 20, so you're not going to get, it's not going to clear the minions quite that quickly when you're early into the game at level 1. It's not going to completely clear the wave, but it still gives you fantastic wave clear and is absolutely a 100% talent that you pretty much must take every game. So I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, wait, what? You go Bird of Prey, you don't go Easy Prey? So Easy Prey, I feel like it's kind of just a noob trap. So it's going to increase the damage you do to mercenaries, right? It's Misha's damage first of all. So her auto attacks will do a little bit more damage to to minions. So attacking minions with Misha is not important, obviously. That's not the reason you take the talent. You don't take it so you have better wave clear through Misha. Misha's going to not really be attacking the wave most of the time anyway. She should be on the enemy heroes that's zoning, so you can zone them from the wave. Because you always want kind of Misha to be in their face and kind of just peeling for you. And if she's attacking the wave, then she's not really doing that. And if you're comparing Misha's damage to the wave compared to Bird of Prey, you're going to get way, way, way more wave clear from Bird of Prey. So the minion damage here is not important. So the really important, or the big part of this talent is that you do increased damage to mercenaries, and Misha takes 50% less damage from them. So that means if you go do ogres, or you go do some kind of shaman camp, or you do knights or something, you're gonna be able to take that camp a little bit more, a little bit easier. So the increased damage is nice. It's 2.5 times more damage that Misha's going to be doing, but Misha doesn't really have that much damage. So 2.5 times isn't really the biggest deal in the world. The other part is she gains armor so that you can tank them longer, so you have to heal her less so that she just doesn't die as quickly. And this isn't really necessary. So when you're doing merc camps, even with this talent, Rexxar still does them incredibly slow. He's just not a good hero to be doing merc camps with. So if you think of like Sonya, or you think of Illidan, or you just think of kind of even like if you have your Vala and your Malfurion go do them, they're going to be able to do them way, way more effectively and way, way more quickly than you're going to be able to do them with Rexxar. If you go out of lane to go solo a merc camp for like 30, 40 seconds, you're going to miss like 1 to 2 waves, and that is not worth it at all. It's if you're gonna take this talent and you're gonna go do merc camps, you might as well pick a hero that can just do merc camps more effectively because you're still gonna do them incredibly slowly. The only really big advantage to this talent that I'll give it credit for is that you can do boss camps. You can do bosses a lot more effectively. But like if you're trying to, you can solo a boss with that talent, but it takes you incredibly long. The enemy team will probably sniff it out, and it's really not a viable strategy. It might work at kind of lower levels of play, but at any kind of decent level of play, they're gonna be like, "Where's Rexxar? He's been gone for like a minute and a half. Oh, he's probably on that boss. Let's go kill him." And you're just not gonna get any value. And if you're off the map for that long, you have to remember that you're not doing anything else on the map. Like you're not winning your lane, which is what you should be doing. And it's just you're not gonna get value out of this talent. It's not nearly as good as you think it is. So Bird of Prey is 100% a talent that you should be taking. The only time I would say don't take Bird of Prey is if you're on like Battlefield of Eternity and there's really nothing to wave clear. Flare is actually really good. So Flare is just a really good talent in general, but especially when you're fighting over the Immortals, it gives you a 20-second uptime for vision in an area that cannot be removed. It only has a 30-second cooldown, so there's only 10 seconds. It's gonna be has a 66% uptime. It's only 10 seconds that you won't have it available, especially if you're against stealthies or something. It's really, really strong talent, and I would take it every time on Battlefield of Eternity. But in pretty much every other case, I would go Bird of Prey. Level 4, we have Hungry Bear. Misha's basic attacks heal her for 4% of her maximum health. Hunter Gatherer. So gathering a regen globe gives Misha or gives Rexxar's health regeneration increased by 1.25 up to 25. And after you collect 20 globes, Rexxar and Misha both gain 10 armor, which basically has them reduce damage by 10%. Grizzled Fortitude, every 7 seconds, Rexxar and Misha gain 75 armor. So basically you gain block charges every 7 seconds for Rexxar and Misha. So you're gaining 2 block charges every 7 seconds, but only 2 charges can be had on each Rexxar and Misha at a time. They have their own charges. And Animal Husbandry. Rexxar and Misha gain 2 maximum health every second Rexxar remains alive. These bonuses are lost on Rexxar's death. So if Misha dies, you don't lose these bonuses, but it still affects her. Okay, so all of these talents are actually good. Every single one of these talents are good and situational. If you want to be, okay, so let's break it down. If you're on a wave clear map, and you're in rotation for some reason, you're getting a lot of globes, Hunter-Gatherer is probably the best way to go. It gives you a ton of um, health regen, and it also gives you a lot of damage reduction. 10%, 10 armor, permanent 10 armor is really good. Like that is not something to pass up, and it's not hard to get 20 globes. That's pretty easy to stack. So if you're on like if you're on Tomb of the Spider Queen, for some reason you're not bot lane, you're kind of rotating or something. If you're in a situation where you can stack this up easily, get this talent. If you're in a situation where you can't get globes, you have three options. You have Hungry Bear, Grizzled Fortitude, and Animal Husbandry. Okay, so the enemy team has a lot of big auto attack hitters. So if they have like a Zeratul, or if they have like a Nova or something, something where they probably have like follow through, or they have kind of big hits, where you're constantly being chunked. Not if they like if they have like a Tychus, or they have like a Tassar, or they have a Zarya, or anything with a fast attack speed tracer, you don't want to get this talent. But if they have like big auto attacks, you want to get this talent. So again, like you're looking for like a Zeratul who's going to jump on you, and this is going to help produce a lot of damage. So if neither of those situations, if you don't have any globes and the enemy team doesn't have a lot of auto attack heroes, you probably want to go Hungry Bear. The Hungry Bear gives Misha a lot more staying power, and it gives her a ton of healing. 4% per auto attack is a lot. I think her auto attack is about 0.87 per second, which is quite slow, but still 4% of her max health. Every auto attack is a pretty sizable amount of healing, especially in kind of a longer drawn out fights. You're going to get a huge percentage of healing for Misha. I feel like sometimes it feels like it almost doubles the amount of healing she gets overall if you include med pet. And finally, we have Animal Husbandry. So this is a talent where, yes, it is viable, but you have to be in a situation where you are very confident on playing Rexxar. Like you're a competent player, you're not going to die. The most important thing here, obviously, is that you stay alive and you remain alive. This gives you about every 30 seconds you're going to gain 60 max health, and every minute you're going to gain 120 health, and every 10 minutes you're going to gain 1200 health. So if you get this talent at like level 4, and you're able to hold it for you're able to not die for 10 minutes, that's 1200 health, and that is a huge chunk of Rexar's health. I think that's like an increase of almost 33%, like 32% or something of his max health, and Misha as well. So that's a huge health increase, and that makes you significantly more difficult to kill. So all these basically give you some kind of defensive sustainability, and Animal Husbandry by far is going to give you the most health and staying power. But if you die, it literally does nothing. It's one of the worst talents in the game if you're dying. So you have to, if you're a competent Rexxar player and you're not going to die, and you're probably laning for a lot of the game, like on Brax's Holdout, where it's hard to kill Rexxar on that map, this might be a good talent. But just be aware of that. This talent is definitely viable, but if you die with it, it's useless. So it's a give and take. It's a good talent in the way that it's designed. So most of the time, you're probably going to go Hungry Bear, maybe Hunter Gatherer. Level 7, we have Aspect of the Beast, Crippling Talons, Taking Flight. So Aspect of the Beast lowers the cooldown of Misha's charge by 1.5 seconds per every time she auto attacks. Crippling Talons increases Spirit Swoop's slow amount to 50% from 30% and increases its duration from 2 to 3. And Taking Flight increases Spirit Swoop's range by 20%. If it hits an enemy hero, the mana cost is refunded and the cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds. Okay, so Taking Flight is garbage. I'm not even going to bother talking about it. It increases your range, basically, and gives you a tiny bit less of a cooldown. It's not good. Crippling Talons is actually quite strong. So if you look at the slow percentage increase, it's from 30 to 50 and from 2 to 3. And it's not decaying. It's a flat slow of 50% for a full 3 seconds. That's actually a lot. Unfortunately, for this talent, Aspect of the Beast is way too good. So it basically reduces the cooldown of Misha charge by 50%. So if you look over here, if I turn cooldowns off, and if I get this talent here, it's going to significantly reduce the cooldown of Misha charge. So let's look at the cooldown here. I'm going to use Swift Swoop at the same time, and you'll see what the cooldown is in comparison. So it should come up at about 2 seconds. When Spirit Swoop's at about 2 seconds, it's going to come available, which means that it reduces the cooldown by about 50% because that's 5 seconds. So you're going to have a very high uptime on Misha charge if you're constantly attacking heroes, which you really should be, because it's not hard to get auto attacks in on heroes with Misha. So this is basically reduces the cooldown of your most important ability by 5 seconds, which is very, very strong. Level 10, we have interesting choices. We have Bestial Wrath and Unleash the Boars. Misha Wrath increases Misha's basic attack damage by 150% for 12 seconds. And it's a 50-second cooldown. And Unleash the Boars releases a herd of boars to track down all enemy heroes in a direction, dealing 241 damage and revealing slowing enemies by 40% for 5 seconds. So one of the reasons that Crippling Talons that isn't that great overall is because like in the whole aspect of Rexxar is because Unleash the Boars provides a slow as well. That's basically the same as Crippling Talons with Spirit Swoop would be. So most of the time you're gonna go Unleash the Boars, and let's have a look at what that looks like. Basically, you have a huge cone here, and even if you don't have vision of the enemies, it will give you vision, and the boars will run until they hit enemies and track them down. So you can see that once the boars hit, they grant vision, and they also do a bit of damage, and they slow. So this is good for it's not just good for engaging an enemy team, although obviously it's very strong at engage. It's also good for peeling, and if the enemy team has a lot of invisible heroes or stealth heroes, it can help peel for your kind of squishy backline and make it difficult for those heroes to do anything for the 5 seconds that it's active. So most of the time, this is gonna be your best option. Bestial Wrath
Choose a talent.
is the other option that you can go, and it's going to increase the damage of Misha by 150%. So basically, Misha will do the same amount of damage that she could do to mercenaries with the level 1 talent that she can do to heroes. So when I activate it here, she becomes larger and she does significantly more damage. And this is actually a lot of damage to heroes. If you get this like on Vala or something, Vala's basically running the entire fight. But it's only going to really affect one hero, and it's more of a zoning tool in the fact that you won't really get kill pressure on a hero because Misha attacks so slowly and her damage is so sustained, but it is quite high damage. You're not really going to get kill pressure on an enemy. It's more of that they'll just be zoned out of the fight. So whoever's Misha attacking will either um, be too pressured, will be pressured enough to that they have to leave the fight, or they'll die because your whole team can kind of gang up on them. So most of the time, you're going to want to go Unleash the Boar. So the difference in here is if you already have like kind of a lot of CC, I think that Bestial Wrath is something you might want to go. If the enemy team doesn't really have very good engage, and if they're just engaging on you a lot of the time, I think that if you're planning want to play more defensive, Bestial Wrath is probably better, or again, you have a lot of CC. Otherwise, I think Unleash the Boars is kind of strictly better. So most of the time, I'd say like 70% of the time at least, you're going to go Unleash the Boars. Level 13, we have Wildfire Bear, Aspect of the Hawk, and Dire Beast. So Wildfire Bear is basically a Sunfire cape. If you played League at all, or Burning Rage, and the other 13 talents, and it just does damage around you. 61 damage at level 20 to nearby enemies, and it's just going to do damage around Misha. So it helps with wave clear, and it can help with pressuring enemies if they're focused around Misha as well. Aspect of the Hawk, when Spirit Swoop hits an enemy, Rexxar gains 100% attack speed for 3 seconds. Misha's basic attacks increase the duration of this buff by 0.5 seconds. And we have Dire Beast. Rexxar and Misha's basic attacks increase the damage of the next Misha charge by 40%, stacking up to a 400% damage bonus. Okay, so the talent you want to go here is Dire Beast. So let's talk about the other talents though. So Wildfire Bear can be useful in some situations where you might need additional wave clear, but I feel like with having Bird of Prey at level 1, you don't really need this wave clear anymore. It doesn't really offer you too much. I think that Dire Beast is kind of just strictly better because it's just going to do more damage, and it does AoE damage as well since Charge is obviously an AoE ability. Aspect of the Hawk is going to give you more single target damage than Dire Beast can, but I think that as I'll show you in a second, Dire Beast is just too powerful to kind of give up. So it's going to increase the damage of charge by 5 times when you stack it up. So let me take the talent here, and you can see at the bottom left, you have a little icon that shows how many auto attacks I've gotten. And once it gets to 10, that'll be fully stacked. You can obviously use it before it gets to 10, but at level 10, it's going to do the most amount of damage. So Misha charges here. She's going to get 647 damage for a charge. That's a lot of damage. So if we compare Spirit Swoop, it only does 309. So it actually does significantly more damage than your main ability. And this adds burst damage to Rexxar's kit and gives you kind of just a lot more threat on Misha and just on Rexxar in general. So let's see that you can see that with this talent as well at level 7, Aspect of the Beast, it's going to lower the cooldown of your charge so that you have a lot of charges available, and you can pretty much use it. If you use it off of cooldown and you're getting full attacks off, it will you can get up to 8 stacks. So I'll show you here. Watch the stack indicator at the bottom left. So I'm attacking this, I charge. So when Misha charge comes back available, I will have about 8 stacks. And you can charge again. So you don't want to have full stacks. Obviously this is optimal if I'm just fully auto attacking a target. And this won't happen. This won't always happen in a realistic kind of team fight, but you're still going to have a lot of uptime on dire beast with Misha charge, and it's going to give you a lot of extra damage. At level 16 we have Thrill of the Hunt, Primal Intimidation, and Feign Death. So Thrill of the Hunt increases you and Misha's basic movement speed by 25% every time you hit your basic auto attacks. Primal Intimidation is going to passively reduce enemies that attack you their attack speed by 20% for 2.5 seconds, and you can activate it to slow enemy attack speed by 50% and enemy movement speed by 20%. Up nearby heroes and summons, and this happens near both Rexxar and Misha. And if you attack Misha or Rexxar, your attack speed will basically be reduced by 20%. And we have Feign Death, which fixes your death, becoming invulnerable and untargetable for 5 seconds. During this time, you can control Misha. It's basically Ice Block, but a lot better because this talent has a 35-second cooldown instead of a 60-second cooldown, and it lasts for 5 seconds instead of 3 seconds, and you can still control Misha while you're feigning death. So this is basically Ice Block on steroids. However, it's not quite as good on Rexxar because he's already a tank, but it does help in a lot of situations where you're being focused constantly. If they have a lot of stealth, if they're constantly able to get on you, if they have a lot of burst damage, this can buy you a lot of time. So most of the time, if they have burst damage, you just want to go this talent. If they have a lot of auto attack heroes and they're not really able to get on you, you want to go Primal Intimidation. Again, this is more effective than Imposing Presence. It's basically the same thing, but it also works off of Misha, not just Rexxar. So you have 2 heroes that it'll proc off. It doesn't stack. Like you can't slow enemy attacks by 100% if you hit them with the activation or something. If you hit them with both, but it's still very effective. Especially since you can get Misha really deep on like the enemy backline. You can just charge her on Vala and then slow her attack speed. And Thrill the Hunt is also good to kind of increase your kiting ability and increase your chasing ability. So all these talents are good, and all of them are situational. So if they have a lot of burst damage, you want to go Feign Death. If they have a lot of attack speed heroes, basic attack heroes, you want to go Primal Intimidation. If they don't really have either of those, and you're not really at risk of dying, you just want to go Thrill the Hunt. So most of the time, you're probably going to go Thrill the Hunt. And at level 20, we have upgrades. So Spirit Bond increases the duration of Bestial Wrath by 50%, and Misha's basic attacks heal Rexxar for 50% of her damage dealt during Bestial Wrath. Kill Command and Unleash the Boars deals 50% more damage and roots enemies for 1.5 seconds. Frenzy of Kalimdor, your basic attacks deal 10% more damage, and Misha's basic attacks slow the enemy target by 20% for 1.25 seconds. And Hardened Skin, which reduces damage that you and Misha take by 75% for 4 seconds. Okay, so if you went Bestial Wrath, you probably just want to go Hardened. Well, let's talk about Hardened Skin first. Hardened Skin is just a really, really strong talent in general, so it keeps you and Misha alive. And if the enemy team is diving you, you want to go this talent, no matter what level 10 heroic you took. If you're under threat a lot of time and you need more survivability, this talent will always be good. It's always a viable option, and it just allows you to play more aggressively, even if you're not under threat. You can put yourself in a position where you would die otherwise if you didn't have the skin. If the enemy team focuses you and you have Hardened Skin and you activate it, they'll probably lose the fight because 75% damage reduction is a huge damage reduction amount. Frenzy of Kalimdor is just pretty bad in general. You're already going to have slows in your kit, especially if you go Unleash the Boars. So having the additional slow isn't that good, and 10% more auto attack damage from just you is not strong. Just from it's not even increased on Misha. It's just 10% damage on your auto attacks. It's just not. This is not a good talent. Kill Command is actually really good. So not only does it do more damage, it roots them for 1.5 seconds. This is like a targeted root that cannot be avoided. So this is a really, really strong engage and kite ability, and it actually gives Rexxar a huge spike. So if you can, you want to make sure you're taking Kill Command at level 20. The only time you wouldn't take it is if you need Hardened Shield because they're diving you. And Spirit Bond is kind of situational. So if you feel like you're not really under any pressure, you can go Spirit Bond if you did go Bestial Wrath at level 10. And it basically just lets Misha do more of what Misha's going to do, and it gives you some nice passive healing. So that's only if you don't need the Hardened Skin. So that's pretty much all you need to know about Rexxar, and I hope you have fun with him. He's definitely a unique hero in the game, and something that I don't think any other hero can really offer you. you're gonna have to get used to his kind of low damage output. But I think once you do, you really kind of fall in love with this kit and playing Misha and controlling two heroes. It can be really, really satisfying once you've kind of learned the playstyle. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Until next time, I will talk to you then.